This is InCamp Whitetail Brief with Ben Koch himself. Ben Koch, brief background on Ben Koch. We're going to do a long episode with Ben Koch after he kills a buck this year. But this is one of our shorts, our 15 to 20 minute episodes where we kind of just dive into some strategy and planning for the season. So a little bit of background on Ben Koch. Ben Koch and I grew up from diapers on. We saw each other kill a lot of deer in the very beginning. We probably killed a couple songbirds here or there with BB guns growing up, and probably played Charles Ingalls in the backyard a few times, you know? So what's up, dude?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on, Aaron. I think it's great you're doing with the show and the podcast. And like you said, we've known each other our whole lives. And I think I've learned as much about the outdoors from you and your family than anybody else. So I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm honored to be doing this with you today.
Absolutely. Like I said, we're going to do a full episode after you kill your buck this year, because
I hope so.
The people need to hear it. So Ben Koch is not new to the world of hunting. We recorded one earlier today. You're going to come out after. You might actually come out before his, but he was a new hunter. We talked about kind of he's actually had a couple good years with some good encounters. We talked about his trail camera not his trail camera strategy, but his strategy going into this season and how he's kind of accelerated his learning curve. But what year after, you've killed a couple bucks, none with your bow yet. You've killed a pile of does with your bow. So you've got the shooting thing down.
Yeah.
And you actually have had some pretty great encounters with bucks as well. What I find pretty interesting about your style of hunting is you are, as far as archery goes, you are a true blue, as early as it gets, bow hunter. Could you tell me why?
Yeah, man. So like you were saying, this is probably like my fourth year total, maybe 3.5 really, of hunting archery. Hunted rifle a long time, and it was interesting. I was listening to the episode you did with Jay Spousman. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
And like it was funny listening to him. His whole background was athletics, right? Like growing up, and that's kind of I could really assimilate to that, because that's all we did growing up, was play sports. So 9 times out of 10, my weekends were more sports than hunting. But yeah, man. As far as like bow hunting, it's really turned into like my passion right now over rifle, just because of the axes I have in my house and some other land that our family has. And I will say this, there's a lot of things I don't do right, but one of the things that I feel like I try to do, and I do it well, is we put a lot of time in the stand in season. And that has what really helped me these last 2 seasons, be able to put some does on the ground and get close to some of these big bucks. I remember talking to you when I was first getting into archery, and you said, Ben, like, even if you don't kill big bucks or even deer, archery hunting will make you that much better of an overall hunter. And that couldn't be more true. I think I've been closer to more deer in the last 3 years than I ever have in 20 years of hunting rifle, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we have like a little 50-acre property, man, with some clear cut, some woods, and some water. So as far as in deer environment, we're really blessed. Like, we kind of have it all, and we hunt it pretty hard. But we're in the stand a lot. And over the last 2 years, what we've done is we had a couple of cameras. And I really have to give Bryce some credit here, my brother. There was a couple spots I'm like, I don't want to put cameras here. I don't like the woods. There's not enough timber for bucks to be cruising in there. And I remember one time he took a cell phone video of this little 5-pointer like 40 yards out, and he sent it to me. Get out of the stand, we're watching it, and in the background of this video, you can see like this ivory tusks just glowing like 100 yards. It's a daddy, right? It's one of the big boys. And of course, it's walking the creek towards this little patch of woods that Bryce said he kept seeing him walking to. And, you know, I put a camera up there this year, and man, they are hitting it hard. And it seems like that seems to be the enter route to when they feed, not an exit. And that's going to help us a lot in getting some of these bucks, I think, in better daylight shooting times.
So what kind of food sources, what are they honed in on right now? I mean, because you've been sending me trail camera pictures like every day.
And Aaron, this is where it's funny, right? I tell people all the time, like, I feel like I'm not a hunter. I feel like I'm a shooter, because I'll point to a tree and you're like, oh yeah, it's a southern eastern hemlock nightwood. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's a beautiful tree. I honestly don't know trees and plants that well, but they're out in this clear cut by my house and they're just crushing food. I don't know what it is, but I mean, buck after buck after buck. The problem was the last couple of years, we would see them like the first 2 weeks. And then, like, I know everyone says, yo, rut this, rut that. We would get like one or two good looks in the rest of the season after having multiple encounters.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really nice buck. I remember telling you about it. Like, I think it was last year, huge 8-pointer. And that was the only encounter I had with them all season. So I don't know what they're eating out there, but I think what helps us is like the last 2 summers going into hunting season have been pretty dry.
Yeah.
And the creek where we're at is really deep in some spots. And there's some spots where these deer can ford it pretty easily and walk right across. And actually how I found the trail that I'm going to hunt this year, I was running. I usually run like, a couple miles by my house. And I just looked to my left and there was like, it looked like almost like runoff water was there. The trail was like down to mud and there was 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I bet you these suckers are coming right here at last light. Well, sure enough, I hung my camera about 40 yards in off that trail right across the creek. And that's where all the daddies are hiding. So I'm hoping, I don't, to answer your question, I'll be honest, I don't know what they're eating. I just think the good Lord, they're eating something out there, but I couldn't put my finger on it. It's a lot of goldenrod out there, tall grass. The neighbor seems to cut it one time in late November. So it's there all season. It's high.
Mm-hmm.
Probably comes to mid shoulder on most of the deer. So they feel covered, I feel like, but there's a couple of shooting lanes we have cut for ourselves.
So what I've seen from your property is mostly it's kind of like warm season. So it sets up almost like a creek bottom swamp kind of situation where
Yep.
you have those warm season grasses and then you just have little strips of timber that kind of run through these grasses like veins. And you did a really good job the last 3 years of kind of just finding big bucks. I mean, people could say, well, you put the cameras on a 50-acre property, you're going to get bucks, but you honestly have had them patterned. And last year, you actually missed 2 big ones. And it's funny because I don't think you quite know how big they are, but they're
You're right, Aaron. I probably don't.
They're very large deer, Ben. They're very large deer.
I'll tell you what, that 10-pointer I missed. I mean, I was in need of counseling, therapy, everything. I was heartbroken.
Yeah, I talked you off the ledge for that one.
Yes,
so
you sure did.
When you are picking your stand to hunt a deer like that in the early part of the year season, what kind of makes you tick when you pick a spot? Are you just pointing your finger at a tree, or are you kind of like, hey, maybe they're funneling through this?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We named some of these bucks like everybody does, goofy names, and the buck that I really wanted to get, we had named the Alien. And the Alien, I would notice like how I hung my one camera in the backyard because they all come in the backyard early season. So that gives me like a good start of like, what do I have back there? They're right in my backyard, and I'll get like the best 3 or 4 bucks in there. And then honestly, Aaron, since like it's literally my backyard, I don't know if a lot of guys can do this because of access, but I'll sit in my backyard stand with a pair of binos, and that covers the way that one stand sits. It's not intrusive, right? I'm not putting any scent down. I'm not going out to where they're feeding and stuff. And I can see like, I want to say probably like 75 to 80% of the area I'm going to hunt.
Huh.
And when I was hunting the Alien pretty hard, I noticed he would come out to feed like, 6, like last half hour of light every night through this one little patch. It was kind of clear next to a real dead tree. So I could see this tree. I couldn't see him until he got over the ridge, but I would line his head up to the trees that I saw him behind him. And I literally put a stand over on that backside to hunt him. And I'll be darned if that second day of season, that's exactly where he came out through that field. And he picked me up, and yeah, things got a little hairy there, but honestly, it was just physically watching with my eyes because he wasn't hitting my cameras, and I was kind of confused. So luckily for me, having it like the backyard hunter, be able to climb up in that stand and just get binoculars and just sit there for an hour in the evening, helped me put like, hey, he's coming over this side or sometimes they'll come out of a hedgerow, but it seemed like the Alien was hitting this one spot every single night. And I literally just went 40 yards to where he came out, took myself in the tree line, 15, 10 yards. And that's where it all went down. Just got to make the shot next time.
Well, I think one thing that's cool is you're new to bow hunting and new, like, rifle hunting. You hunt up in the mountains or whatever, and you kind of you guys have some stands picked out that your uncle has picked out for you and that kind of thing. But I think one thing that's kind of cool is, even though you don't know, you don't really need to know, what kind of tree this is or what kind of plant that is. you'll learn that as time goes on. Like, I'm sure, when I'm with you scouting or somebody's with
Yeah.
you scouting, will be like, oh, that's what this is or whatever. But the important thing is you're learning hands-on with this glassing stuff, because it's not really overlooked, but it's kind of overlooked in PA, right? Everybody wants to just hunt the woods, get in the woods,
Yeah.
get in the woods. And the fields are, I understand why people don't want to hunt fields, but you're not really hunting fields. You're hunting like CRP, like I said, warm
Yeah.
season grass type stuff. So you're kind of putting yourself on a accelerated learning curve with glassing. And, so maybe we should talk a little bit more about that. So you're glassing at a vantage point, but are there any other tips that you can give somebody that wants to try to glass for early season? Is there a type of binocular you use or spotting scope that
Yeah.
helps?
I'm using the Bushnell 3-9s. Pretty simple setup. And one thing I think, me and Bryce were doing well the last couple of years is like we enjoyed being in the stand even off season, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just getting, if you have the opportunity to get up into like a vantage point, I would say, and you put me onto this too. Like I used to really underestimate like bucks' reaction to the pressure, right? And the pressure being like in their where they're traveling, where they're eating, putting scent down. Because I've seen it now hunting these deer enough that like if you walk through a field and if they hit that trail you came in on, most of them are definitely getting alert at a minimum, right? And I think the deer respond to that early season, like, hey, something new is changing. So for us, it's nice to have a vantage point, maybe to not where you're gonna put don't sit in the spot where you think you're gonna kill that deer per se. Like I didn't put that stand up to the last minute. Um, and we would sit probably like in a less pressured area or a less pressured stand, maybe that we have deer coming in and out, but we don't have daylight pictures of those bucks at those stands. We're not sitting in that stand where I have daylight pictures being like, oh, I hope I get a 20-yard look at them. I don't want that. I
Yeah.
want the 100-yard, 125-yard view of everything I'm hunting. And you can see them come across the creek. Are they leaving that way toward that guy's house? Are they staying with the creek? Are
Yeah.
they coming up over the big timber over the hill? And so it's really just, time in the seat. And that's one thing this year I felt like, man, I've spent a lot of time, maybe almost to the point that was a little overkill. I might have been pressuring some deer a little too much because I thought like, man, I can't kill bucks on the couch. So I got to be in a stand. But I think there's a smarter way maybe for me to go about that. But as far
Yeah.
as early season glassing, I would say pick a stand or pick an area that you're not going to hunt as hard in season and try to look into where you're going to hunt and potentially kill that buck you have on camera, those does that are hitting every single night.
Yeah. So how many does did you kill, Ben, in the early season? Well, just with your bow last year.
Just with my bow, we shot 6. I shot 6.
Okay. So there's something else that's to be said about that. You killed 6 does and they were all before November, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what's something that you could walk somebody through with your shot process that makes it so that you have the confidence to make 6 shots in less than a month?
Yeah. So again, I don't do a lot of things well. I'll say that another thing I do well is I shoot a lot of
You
arrows.
don't have to be humble. You can toot your
Well,
horn.
I don't. I was just talking with someone, a buddy of mine, like what makes a good hunter? It's hard to define. But one of the things I think you have to have in your tool bag to be a good hunter at the end of the day is you have to be able to make the shots and make the most of your opportunities, right? And that's one thing as hunters we can control. Like if I shot my bow one time, I'm not going to shoot it. I'm not going to shoot that bow as well if I shot it 200 times. So I shoot a lot of arrows at my house. And it's funny, like, I feel like I'm most nervous. Like for a new hunter like myself, like if I can get that bow drawn, then I calm down. It's like the whole process of how do I get this arrow back to my cheek and drawn without spooking this deer, getting this doe or buck to look me right in the eyes. So I don't have to, is he going to duck? Is he not going to duck? And to be honest with you, Aaron, a lot of the farthest deer I've killed with my bow is 21 yards. So I haven't taken long pokes. To date, I think my largest range was 21. I shot a doe. And it's funny, the first 2 doe I shot, it happened so fast, right? So like you're sitting there, they walk right underneath you. And I have like, a 6-yard space till she gets lost in the hedgerow. And I literally was bow, draw, meh. And that one was one of my least frantic shots because it all happened like it was all muscle memory from pulling that bow so many times in the backyard. And that's fortunately where I want to be. Like if it's quick, if it's, I have a tight window, I've shot enough arrows in my backyard that it's like, hey, I know where my anchor spot's at. I'm not trying to fidget too much. I know where my nose has got to hit. But it seems like some other times where I have a doe coming in, I see her from like 50 or 60 yards. It's the anticipation. It's like, oh, dude, like I know and sometimes it's just for me getting that bow back to an anchor spot under control. Even if I'm not under control, if I can just get it back to here and then take a deep breath, I feel like I can kill him. Hopefully, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
But I would say more reps with your bow would make newer hunters more comfortable taking shots in the woods, for sure.
Do you think that more practice makes you a worse archer, or do you think it makes you a better archer?
I would say makes you a better archer. And you know what? Another thing I'll add too is like, not only like, don't just stand there. And another break put me on this too. Like, don't just stand there in your backyard, perfectly angled, right? Feet aligned. Like, sit down, lean a little bit, shoot at low light. Like, I've been practicing even right now. So I do a lot of like last low light shooting. Cause like, you got to pull that back. And if you're not used to finding that peep or the circle, that sight, it's a lot difficult. It's a lot more difficult to do that at 7:45 than is at high noon or 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's stuff I never really thought about starting. Like, I was like, I got to practice how I'm going to shoot these deer up there.
Yeah. That low light is a good tip. Is there anything that you do when you're shooting at a deer that you have to walk yourself through your shot process, or do you feel like you kind of go into second nature mode?
No, I definitely have a process. What I do with my eyes is get drawn back, right? And this was true. I shot the closest one I shot last year was 6 or 7 yards, and I had her, and it was the same, right? I drew back, and it was like peep. I get peep circled up, and I do bubble then pin. So if my bubble is in between those black lines, and then the last thing I check is I just hold that pin exactly where I'm gonna let go. So for me, it's peep, bubble, pin, and I let it go. And I change releases this year. We'll see how it works out. But last year I was shooting a trigger release, a wrist release. I didn't really have too many problems, other than I think I got a little too aggressive on that 10-pointer and took a shot that I probably should have waited on. Other than that, it was okay.
Well, I mean, there's a time and a place, right? Like sometimes you have to take the shot that's available, as long as it's an ethical shot. It's a reasonable. I mean, even close shots are a risk, but.
And that's what you kind of talked me through. I remember when the alien got away from me. I remember you're like saying, like, you know, maybe if I would have been, I think, a better hunter, like knowing the thermals better and the wind, right? Like I would have been, hey, I should take this 30-yard shot, even though he's walking right towards me. If he gets a little nosy, you got to know. And that's where inexperience, I think, may have cost me a buck. And then later that afternoon, seeing a 10-pointer, that encounter directly affected how I hunted that next buck, right? I didn't want him to get away. He was coming into me. I got aggressive and probably took a shot in some thick stuff that I probably should have waited for him to pass all that. And I didn't. So it's a lesson learned, like you said.
So are you learning a little bit more about wind and thermals at this point?
I am. I just listened to a podcast on my way to work maybe a week ago. I think I sent it to you. The kid does some really good work with it. Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't understand it. I feel like I'm just a kid in the woods. Like, look, Aaron, I've shot 2 deer in shorts and a t-shirt. So it's like, sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is ridiculous, but I'm trying to learn what I can. I'm reading here and there. I'm picking guys like your brain. But all in all, it's pretty new to me. I just pray I get lucky and just sink one in these deer.
I can't wait to see when you got that big one on the ground this year, dude.
I hope so, man. I hope you're right.
So what we're going to do, Ben, is the guests need to hear more from you. And like I said, so we're going to do a full length episode when you kill that buck, because I know it's going to happen next week. I can't wait to see it. And we're going to talk about, we'll probably talk a little bit more about your shot process and that, but it's just going to be a storytelling time. And
that'd be great, man.
Yeah. So we're going to have fun doing that, but thanks for coming on and talking about your strategy. So everyone, for In Review with Ben Koch today, we talked about early season strategy, Ben's strategy for getting bucks close enough for a shot, Ben's shot process, and how he handles buck fever, even though we didn't use those words. So appreciate you coming on.
All right, thanks you, man. I appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
Talk to you later. Bye.